From Andre Agassi turning to drugs to handle the pressure, to Mardy Fish openly having panic attacks on the court, let's talk about some brave tennis players who've spoken up about their mental health and how it took them to some very dark places. Like how Andre Agassi admitted that, to handle the stress and keep the pressure of the sport at bay, he turned to using crystal meth at one point in his life. He said that it was all due to the fact that he was done with the expectation of being the best, especially considering that he'd been living this life ever since he was 13, when his dad pushed him into pursuing the sport and enrolled him in a tennis boarding school. Well, that's gotta be tough for a young teenager. But Agassi wasn't the only one who's admitted to using drugs to keep the stress at bay. Nick Kyrgios, the former world number 13, has also opened up about his struggles, saying that he has battled his demons throughout his career, going so far as to abuse drugs and alcohol at some points. He's also talked about harming himself, even on his Instagram, where he mentioned how there was a time when he was in such a dark place that he had spiraled out of control. Now, I have to admit, it takes a lot of strength to open up like that, especially when you're such a huge star. So believe me when I say that when Kyrgios opened up about his mental health and spoke of when he pushed away everyone he cared about by not communicating and shutting down, all his fans heard him and support just kept pouring in, which is exactly the kind of mental health advocacy we need in this sport. Even players like Maria Sakkari have said the same, recalling a time when she used to struggle to even win matches due to late-stage jitters. And for her, the pressure was double, because tennis was like a family business, thanks to her mother, Angelika Kanellopoulos, being a top 50 player back in the 80s. She said that there came a point when she couldn't sleep for 3 straight days, and that's when she decided to retire. Although that didn't last long, she did realize how important it was to give herself a break every once in a while. And the same goes for Ilana Dokic, who spoke up about her mental health struggles in an Instagram post, saying that back in 2022, she almost jumped off her 26th floor balcony. She said that she'll never forget the day, which was so dark it felt as if she'd lost all sounds, vision, and even the ability to think. In her post, she also said how she'd been crying all the time because of depression, anxiety, and pain, saying that these feelings had become a constant for her and she was blaming herself for feeling that way. Dokic called this a vicious cycle and said that she could never forget the day she almost took her own life. It pushed her to get her life back in order by getting professional help and by being honest and truthful to her fans and family. Well, my respects to the pro, because it's never easy to lay out your trauma like that. But it wasn't only her who did it. There's also Katie Swan, a British tennis pro who has been pretty candid about her struggles with mental health. She said that at times, she used to feel so low that she once thought of backing out of the French Open altogether, all for the fear of embarrassing herself. Katie spoke up about how she's been constantly trying to get her confidence back up, whether on or off the court, and that she'd been so afraid of disappointing her team and family that she'd lost belief in herself. So much so that she said that every match she lost felt like a personal insult or injury to her mental health. But then, when she realized that things were getting out of hand, Katie decided to seek help. Because for one, she had stopped sharing her thoughts with everyone, and that had started affecting her game. Also, she realized that if she didn't speak up now, she was going to become so down she won't be able to take it anymore. So she met a psychologist, made it a point to prioritize herself, and said that as a tennis player, she now focuses on her love of the game instead of trying to keep everyone happy. Another such player is Paula Badosa, who has probably been one of the top players who spoke up about battling anxiety and depression in a video back in 2019. She said that at the time, people were talking about her as if she was going to be the next Maria Sharapova. I bet that increased the pressure by 100%, and that was when the struggle began, when she set standards for herself that were too high, making her life even more difficult than it already was.
Because I was compared, especially they were like the next Maria Sharapova, and I was very, very young, and I wasn't prepared to listen to all that.
Making her feel sick of the tennis court itself. But thankfully, Badosa pulled through and went on to achieve an amazing breakthrough in 2021 when she won her first WTA 1000 title at the BNP Paribas Open. Then, we have Naomi Osaka, who withdrew from the French Open due to mental health concerns back in 2021. The 23-year-old Japanese player had been experiencing some serious mental health issues at that point and said that once she arrived in Paris for the Games, things became worse. So, to take care of her well-being, she made the difficult decision to withdraw from the tournament altogether. While this did cause a bit of an outcry, a lot of players supported her too, including Dominic Thiem, who spoke up about his own struggles from the year before, and how he'd been totally exhausted after winning the 2020 US Open. This even prevented him from going back to training and getting back on the court, and how it was one of the hardest times of his life as a tennis player. Another superstar player who's opened up about her struggles is Serena Williams, who openly admitted to being depressed after an injury made her inactive and kept her away from the game. This was the time when she developed a hematoma from a pulmonary embolism because of a broken glass that cut her foot. This caused her to undergo multiple surgeries, because of which she felt herself go deeper into depression, causing her to cry all the time and trigger a trauma response that even damaged her lungs. There was also the time she opened up about her prenatal depression, saying that she always felt like she was in a funk and that she wasn't a good mom. But even as she doubted herself, her fans kept supporting her through and through, bringing her back to the game better and stronger than before. And then we have Stefanos Tsitsipas, whose father's involvement in his games has always been a topic of contention, especially because they're usually found communicating mid-game, which is a big no-no in tennis. According to the player, though, this judgment has always had the worst impact on him, especially the comments on social media, which have gone from bad to worse progressively. He admitted to feeling extremely lonely and also advised people to not take mental health in athletes lightly, which is correct, because for players like him, or even like Mardy Fish, anxiety and panic attacks can be super dangerous, especially considering the fact that their attacks can happen anytime, whether on or off the court. In fact, Fish has experienced that many times, saying that no one knew what he was going through as he'd trained himself to show no weakness at all. But this caused him a lot of pain and had a panic attack on the court during the 2012 US Open. He also had an anxiety attack before a match against Roger Federer, which was when he decided to withdraw from the match.
When I was going through the whole process, I'm a huge sports fan, so whenever I was going through the whole process, it was sort of looking for a role model or someone that had beaten it.
So, there you have it. From Fish breaking down on the court mid-game to Agassi turning to drugs for support. These were some brave tennis players opening up about their mental health struggles in their careers.